Understanding that using your advanced money to reinvest and get the momentum rolling is the fastest way for you to hit 40, 50, 60K a month as a life insurance agent and scale your agency past $1 million a month. My name is Trey. I'm the owner of Agent Lead Lab. In the past 3.5 years, we've helped 550 agents issue pay $40,000 a month. And on this channel, all I try to do is give you the concepts, the principles, and the behaviors behind those individuals and what they're doing, as well as different strategies that are just working and converting at the highest level. So as always, just make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe, and let's hop right into it. All right. So today, I actually want to talk about leveraging what's called cost to acquire a client and theoretically like an as earned strategy, and the way that you should be thinking about it. Okay. So cost to acquire a client is cost to acquire a client, otherwise called CAC, or right, cost per acquisition. Two names. Basically, it just means how much do you spend and how much does it cost you to close a deal? All right, so let's use an example. All right, so let's say I'm buying leads at $10 a piece and I buy 50 of them. Right, that's $500. Okay, and then let's say I close two people out of that order, two people out of the order. That means the cost to acquire clients as a cost, or their cost per acquisition, is actually going to be equal to $250. Okay, that's how you figure that out. Now, why that is important, because then you determine, okay, so $250 is the cost to acquire a client. Then the next question is like what you get per sale, right? So let's say per sale, I think it's like cost per sale, or whatever the word is. I forget it off the top of my head, but let's just use that for now. Let's say you're selling a lead type, which would be final expense. Let's say final expense, for example. So I'll just keep it simple. So FEX. And let's say you average $800 in annual premium, right? Which actually would be, let's say you have a 9-month advance, 12 of that, 8-9-month advance. Let's just, for simple math, let's just call it $600, right? Advanced. So what your numbers are, you have, it costs you $250 to get $600 client, right? Cool. So that's the thing. $250 gets $600 client. Perfect. So that means your margin is 600 minus 250. So it's 350, right? 400, 300 is, 350. So you make $350. Now, that's to get one client, but you got two clients, right? Because so now what you did is you spent $500 and to get $1,200 back, which equals two clients. Okay, so now your margin is $700, which is easy. Okay, so the way I look at it is when you know these numbers, when you know your cost to acquire a client or cost per acquisition, which should be relative across the board, right? So if you look at cost per acquisition, it should be based on lead type. Okay, that's how you look at it. A lot of people don't ask these questions, and it's super important because people think about like they look at numbers, but they look at leads and sales, but don't look at costs. Costs are what matter, because if you're not profitable, it doesn't make any sense. And then you can be real logical about how you scale. So a lot of times I run into people that are just like, yeah, I just want to spend more, or I want to spend less, but they don't understand the numbers. If you understand the numbers, you can grow quicker. Some of my mentors now teaching me, and like I wish I knew as an agent, because a lot of times we just flaunt these numbers, but we don't actually look at what matters. Okay, so let's say it's like final expense. Your cost to acquire a client or your cost per acquisition should be somewhere in that like $100 to about like $150 range. Why? Because you have chargebacks, right? And if you do these numbers, just because your margin is $700 here, it doesn't equate for the fact of like, it's not $700 kept. It's just $700. So at any point in time, you could lose this. So the way I look at it, which I'll go to in a second, is actually going to be as earned strategies, right? And this is a concept for how you can look at what you're spending. Okay. So final expense, let's say mortgage. It's all going to make sense while I'm doing this. So mortgage protection could be, CPA. It's going to be looking at typically what we see is about 300 to about 350. Right? That's what you're going to see. Sometimes it's closer to like 400. It really depends on your skill level. Okay. And we go here. I'll just do this one. So something like IUL. So pure IUL and like tax-free retirement. Like, so let's say like IBC, whatever you want to call it. Typically, this is going to also be, this is like $350 to about $500. Now, the reason why this range is different is because if you're more heavy on like a simplified issue, it's going to be on the lower end, right? So actually, my bad, 300. But if you're on the heavy tax-free retirement, infinite banking, it's going to be higher, right? Then you look at something like annuity. Okay, so CPA, you're going to be looking at something that's a little bit closer to like $1,000 typically. I'm just being honest, right? Like it's kind of hard to really just close something. I mean, people spend, to really have a closed deal, you're looking at, typically $750 to $1,000. I bet. I'm going to tell you guys $1,000 to be realistic, right? I mean, $750 is you're an absolute savage, and it doesn't really work like that because this sales process is a lot longer. So we'll just put a little, asterisk underline here just so you all have a clear understanding of what's going on. And then you have like, I'm not going to waste time on like niche lead types, and that ranges. Okay. And the reason why it ranges is because you can typically get lower costs on niche leads and custom leads, depending on what it is. So like vets, and people do like truckers, or there's all these different lead types. If they're like out in the public, it's probably going to be in one of these ranges. I'm sorry. But if it's like something you're creating, it could be a lot lower. So if you just came out with like this, let's say you worked with a company who had like a company like America, they have a cashback option. One of the things that if you were making like a cashback option link, then yes, it would be a little bit, the cost to acquire a card would probably be smaller because it would just require, and it would be less competition. So certain things to think about. Now, the reason why these numbers are important, I didn't just bring all this up for no reason, is because this is the margin on advance. What you really need to look at is what is your actual margin, right? Like you really need to look at like what your actual margin is to get real numbers, because that's really how you should be scaling, okay? Because if you look at it from an as-earned standpoint, you'll be a lot more calculated. You also improve on your skills. So let's use the same model, right? This is the advanced, when I say advanced model on payment, okay? So we're just gonna do that. So everybody's clear. This is what most of the industry like loves about life insurance. Yeah, man, we can get advanced. Kind of what I've seen is this. So as earned model on payment, it's going to be philosophy. You don't have to actually be as earned, but if you think of this as earned, it'll help you with making better decisions. Okay. So we'll go back up. Let's just go through everything again. So I'm going to literally go here, cost of a current client, CPA. Then we're going to go, how much do you need to spend to close the deal? Now, here's the thing that's a little bit different about what we're about to go through. With this, you're focusing more on margins from what is the realistic thing. Understand that when you close somebody in the life insurance space for, let's say, $80 a month or $100 a month or whatever it is, and hold on, let me make sure I did this right. Yeah, we're going to call it a $600 client, which if you do math, I just want to make sure I did that. My math's not the best. So 600, that's $50 a month. So $50 per month, right? 600. No, let me do some math real quick. My bad, y'all. I'm not the greatest math person in the world. $600 divided by 12. Yeah, $50 a month. I'm sorry. I know I was tripping. Cool. So $50 per month on a final expense closed deal. Okay, that's what we're going to think about. Now we're going to use the same thing. Let's say we spend $500 on leads. Okay, and we get 2 closes. That means that cost to acquire a client, or CPA, equals $250. All right. Now, let's say the clients that we close had this as their premium, okay, which is $50 per month. That's what they're paying, okay? Now, why this is important is because now what you're typically doing is you're getting that $600. The better way to look at it is, okay, I'm only getting $100. Now, you're probably like, whoa. I close one person for 50, and I close another for $50, right? Remember, I closed two clients. It's two closes, right? So what I actually made is I made $100, okay, on a $500 investment, which is negative, right? You're like, oh, it's negative. It's like, yeah, makes sense. Now, obviously, $50 a month is kind of low, but I mean, that's not a bad number. Let's say that you do another version. I'm gonna explain why this is the same. Let's say you close somebody for $80 a month, right? So 80 times 12 is $960. Let's not even do that. Let's figure out what is $1,500 divided by 12. So 125. Let's say you close somebody at $125 per month. Okay, that's kind of high for final expense, but let's just use this number for example. That's what they're paying in premium. Okay, so normally you get a $1,500 advance, right? And then you get that $1,500 advance. You get two of those because remember we closed two deals times two, right? So really, this is a $250 premium between two people, and then this is actually going to be $3,000 back. So you put $500 in. Cool. So $500 in, you got $3,000 back. Oh, my bad. It's right here. I was like tripping. Okay, $3,000 back. Okay, so you made a $2,500 margin. Okay, which actually would mean, if we're doing this, so everybody's clear, this is the example that I showed you above. This is example 2. Okay, now I'm going to show you the numbers. This is going to be the advanced model. All right, so what color is this? It's going to be light blue. This is the boom, boom. Perfect. So we're going to do it again. So now we're going to say this one is $125 and another $125, which actually equals $250. Okay. So I actually broke even in this example, right? So $500 investment made me in return $500 back. So I broke even. But, follow me, but the key is how you actually use the money and if the person sticks. I'm showing you what most people won't, because the reality is this, what I just broke down, is why people don't make it in the life insurance game. There's nothing wrong with selling life insurance. The problem is that they don't really know what they're selling. So they think that they're up $700 because they put in, an $80 a month premium or a $50 a month premium. So you just come back up here, right? They're saying, hey, I put in $250. I made close two clients at $600. That means that I actually made $700. No, you didn't. If you close people at $50, what you actually did is you only made $100 and you're actually negative $400. So you're actually down, so negative $400 month one. And the reason why people don't want to do that is because they don't want to look at it like that. But the reality is the name of the game in the life insurance space is people paying their premiums. If they don't pay their premiums, you're just getting loans. That's what people don't tell you. Because if you close people on the wrong policy, you're screwed. So what you should do is, even if you get that money, you should treat it like it's as earned. The best way to use it, the most successful way to use it, is to take this money that you're getting from these margins, from the advanced model, regardless if it's this option or this other one I explained, and reinvest it. Okay? The only way that you're going to make money out of $500 investment, closing two deals with a $250 cost to acquire a client, is actually closing them at $125. And you're just breaking even. Now, month 2, you actually made 125 plus 125. You made $250. Which if I told you, you close somebody today, you don't make anything, but next month you're going to make passively 250, and then the month after that, you're passively going to make 250. That frame of mind is what allows you to be successful. Now, there's two ways you could do it. What I recommend is take the advance, because if you take the advance, you can then I would take the portion that you were going to get paid. All right, so let's walk through how this relates to getting to 40K months. People are like, yo, you took all this time, 15 minutes. Yeah, just follow me. So in examples, you take the as earned money and reinvest. This is why people say, yeah, you got to put it back into the business. This is what people actually mean. They just don't give you the behavior that you need to do. You take the as earned money and you reinvest. So if your cost to acquire a client is $250, right? CPA, it's $250. And you spent $500. That means, once again, you closed 2 deals. Now, the goal, if you had a $250 cost to acquire a client, is for that lead to be making you a significant amount back. Let's just say for $250, which is higher than a final expense, right? Once again, we said 100 to 150, which would make sense with our original model. You want to kind of break even on the cost to acquire a client in the life insurance space. Because think about it as if it was an offer where the first month that you close somebody, you make no money, but every month after that, you make passive money. Everybody would take that. The problem is we don't look at it like that. So we just buy leads and don't look at the cost to acquire a client. It's like people that spend $150 on leads or $200 on leads and they get mad because they close one deal. That's the wrong way to think about it. If you close that one person on a $200 a month policy, dude, you literally just covered your first month. Okay, you paid your money back. Then every month you're going to make $200, $200. Real estate places don't make $200, $300, $400. So if you close 3 or 4 deals on a small pack of leads, but they're quality, sticky business, and it stays, yeah, you might not make a lot of money today. So you might have to just live off your savings, but then every month after, it compounds. All right. So $250 cost to acquire a client, close 2 deals. For a $250 cost to acquire a client, I mean, the premium should be like $1,200. About $1,500, to be honest with you. I guess it should be a little bit higher because $250 if you spend $500 on leads and only close 2 leads, that's kind of bad. Just being honest, no matter what the lead type is. Once again, it's about how much do you spend and what's the cost to acquire a client. Let's say on a $1,500 deal, right? That's $1,500 divided by 12. We already did that. So that's actually $125. Okay, so you close 2 of them. So you close 2 deals. So you made $3,000 back. Okay. This is the easiest way to how you break down numbers. It's like, okay, so I spent $250. I spent $500 and I made $3,000 back. So what you should do, right, is spend another $500, right, and put the $500 away. Okay. Sorry. I would put $1,000 away. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, put $1,000 away for chargebacks. And then what you do is you just keep doing that. Then the next time you so then you're just stacking cash. So if you do this over and over and over again, you put another $500 in, you make 3, put $500 in, you make 3. So now you got 1,000, 2,000, 3. So now you have all this money in the event that some of these people do cancel. Because if they do cancel, it's fine. It's like, bro, you have $5,000 sitting in your bank account specifically for if somebody charges back. The problem is you only got to do that for month 1. Once month 1 clears, now you can take a portion of it and take $125 for what all the premiums are. So it's simple. Let's just say you rinse and repeat for 4 weeks. Okay. So you spent on leads 500 times 4, which equals $2,000. For every $500, you made $1,500. 500, so 3,000. I apologize, I did this wrong. 2,500. Here we go. I'm tripping. You should put it all away. So What happens is you spent $500, you made 2,500. So for every one of those, you actually made 10K. I don't know how I messed that up. Cool. So you made 10K in a month. And what you did is you essentially only put away the 500. So you just take away the 2K. So you actually made 8K in gross profit. Okay. Advanced money. All right. Sorry if that was confusing, guys. I'll go through it one more time. So you spent $500. Go back to here. How it relates to making 40K months, because then it's just input output. All right, so it's $250 to cost to acquire a client. Every time you spend $500, you close 2 deals. Right, this is average, so you might close 4 one time and 2 the next. Let's just use it for simple margins. Okay, it's $1,500 per sale. Right, times 2, that's 3K. Then you take the 3K, put that in there. Take $3,000, invest 500, and leaves 2,500. Keep doing this wrong, bro. I did those numbers wrong. For chargebacks, month 1. Most people, if you're coming in, like you try to live super below your means, this is how you scale. It's just simple. And then you scale profitably. You're going to take that money, right? Then you're going to spend, right? Because you had the 3K. Cool. Take 500. Now you have 2,500. You put that away. You put that away. You spend another 5. So you make 3K again, right? Put another 500. Boom. 3 times 4 is actually 12K made. My math is bad. 12K made. And then you take that 12K, and that's how you get your numbers. So I might have confused myself. I apologize. But you all get the purpose of what I'm trying to say, right? Now, since you have spent $500, every time you spend 500, you're basically making 3K. 500, 3K, 500, 3K. So at the end of the month, you spent $2,000 and you made 12K. So you actually made 10K, right? So 12K and then you made 10K in gross. Make sense? So then the question is, how do you get to 40? So how do I get to 40K with this method? Okay, so why don't we just double? So then the next thing is like, okay, you take how much do you want to make? So let's just say, how much do you want to make? Let's say that equals $40,000. You know that for every $500 spent, I make $3,000. Oh, it's super easy. Okay, so if I spend 500, I make 3K. So I just take 40 divided by 3K. And that means I need to have about 13 lead orders of $500. It's simple. It's super simple. It's like, okay, cool. So then you have 2 ways to get there. You can say, okay, so it's 13 orders of 5K. So it's like, I would rather not spend 13 orders in a month, right? Because then if you do 13 divided by 4, that's 3.25. So what I would do is just spend $1,500 a week, right? So it's like 1,500, because now it's just 1,500 times 4, which is equals 6K. 6 times, so then all you do is this. So you're taking a $500, and just so you all understand how I got there. You say you want to make 40K. So for every $500 I spend, I make 3,000. Okay. Then what I need to understand is there's 13 lead orders of $500. You probably can't do 13 lead orders in a month. So you probably want to upgrade your lead type, which typically will fluctuate what your cost to acquire a client is, but we're just using simple numbers because at the end of the day, this would be how you scale, right? So you said, okay, I want to do 3 orders a week of $500. Okay, because it's actually 3.25. If you take I'm confusing myself at this point, but you all get the math, right? You take $500 that you spent and you take 40 divided by 500, that gives you 13, right? And then over 3 weeks. So, because you buy per week, right? So you do 13 lead orders in a month, but over 4 weeks, it's 3.25. So 3.25 orders of $500 per week. This is why people tell you to spend about $1,500 a week to make 40K. You'll hear me say the same thing. And typically, there's better lead types to spend on 1,500 because this is doing final expense. We could use this for insert any lead type. So then you say, okay, so I spend about $1,500 a week, which would be times 4 in a month. That's $6,000 in lead spend. Okay, to make 40K. Because I know if I spend $6,000 divided by 500 equals 12. 12 times 3, because every time I do that, 3,000 equals 36K. Let's just be safe, and let's just say they spend $2,000 a week, right, in leads, just to be safe. So you'd have to spend about $2,000 a week times 4, which would be $8,000 in lead spend to make 40K in the final expense niche. And here's the thing. I did this math, and I know it took me a little bit longer, in the final expense niche. You could take your niche and figure out what it is, because this is all based on the cost to acquire a client and how much you get back in return. So, and this is a high-end final expense, because we said 250 is pretty high. So this could have been a little complex. You might want to go back and watch it, but just a quick summary. The way you can look at how much money you make, and the reason why this works to get to 40K is because if you do it this way, what you're going to end up having is you only actually spent $2,000 and you took 36,000 and just pocketed it. And then the next month, now you can start playing with the money, because you got to let everything clear. People like me, when I made 20K I made 15K my first month. I went out and bought everything. I was like, yo, this is crazy. I had zero strategy for what to do with the money. If you start with the strategy in hand, you'll be fine. And you say, okay, cool. Yeah, I just made 40K or whatever you made that month. But if you take the majority of that money and only that's why they say reinvest in the business just means buy more leads for the same thing and continue to optimize. You reinvest, you'll continue to scale. And then at that point, there's no looking back. So if this video is confusing, let me know. I kind of confused myself a little bit. I'll be transparent. So I try to break these numbers down with you all. But this is how you would think through really scaling. And what I've learned is I have a whole chart that we use. I won't pull it up for the sake of it being like proprietary to us, but understand this. We look at how much you spent on leads, how many leads came in, what was the sale, what's the cost to acquire a client, what's the cost per sale, what's the lead type, and then we just make decisions based on data. In the life insurance space, because you get advances, it makes you feel like you're making more than you are, but because you don't actually have the data, you don't know. So if you don't know what the average chargeback is for each lead type, then you can't know when you do get a $5,000 advance what you should really do with the money. Because like me, I got the money and started paying stuff down, which is cool at first, you think, but in reality, it's not. Because if that person charges back, which people will, you owe that money. And if you don't actually have the money on hand, now what you're doing is rewriting business, which then you have to wait 12 months. So it's literally like, hey, man, there's a 50-50 chance this person cancels, because that's the truth. Like, theoretically, they're either going to keep it or cancel it. Now, when they cancel it or how long they keep it, it doesn't, when they cancel it is the determining factor. It might not be month 1, but they're either going to keep it or cancel it. So you got a true 50-50 shot in terms of your persistency of what's really going to happen. The question is really, okay, because you say, oh, I have a 90, it's like, no, they're going to cancel it at some point. It just depends on when they cancel it, right? Or they're just going to keep it forever. I don't like living where I don't actually know what, like when I make something, I make it. I don't want to live where I make something and I don't know if it's mine. So you may be getting, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, $200,000 in advance. But let's just say that you get $100,000 per month in advance money. If somebody takes your agency, if they decide to leave and they roll that debt to you, you owe the company all that debt. It's not your money. That's the thing I want to get. And if you think it's your money, that's where you're really going to screw yourself. that's where I've seen my previous upline get screwed, like, oh, millions, and great guy, but the industry, and you have the wrong people around you, and things happen. So understand that. But yeah, I hope this one made sense. Might have been a little confusing, but I broke this down because I was thinking through, like, a lot of people ask and are afraid of chargebacks, and it's like you really shouldn't be afraid of them, but I can also understand why. When you have these numbers, you can be really, really confident in what's going on, and you need to look at how much money you're making as the actual premiums paying out instead of the advance. If you do that and then you start taking money every month, because theoretically in this model I gave you, what you do is, yeah, you put 36,000 away and you made 2,000, but in reality, what happened is you now have the wrong perception of how this money comes out. And what you should do is take that $2,000 investment on the low end, right? Or I guess in this end it's $8,000. I apologize. So you made 32,000, and what you should do is, going into the next month, you should take all the people's premiums that were to pay out, and you could really just take that 32 and divide it by whatever number, which would be the monthly premium. So let's just say this is how you should do it: 36,000 divided by 12, and you should take home 3K. That's how you should do it. And then every month you take the amount that you wrote that month and take that out. So if you take 30, okay, so then next month I take out this much, right? It's like, okay, so I made this, and you just start dividing. And you say, okay, every month I'm going to pay myself $3,000. And then you say, I'm going to just pay myself $3,000. And you don't live above those means, because that's what you're actually making. Like, if everybody sticks, but if people leave, you're good. So now you take $3,000 out of there. So it's $33,000 should be sitting in your savings account, and you should only pay yourself $3,000. And then next month you do the same thing. And then next month you do the same thing. And then it compounds. And then you actually have real money. And then now you're not living off there like, oh, I made $36,000. You didn't make $36,000, bro. Don't do that. Now you're cooked. So as always, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.